day today, and the important day today is the Census Day. Well, of course, we know that the lines were open and people could all go and register and complete the census, but the point was that they wanted everyone to have a snapshot of Australia on this day, the 10th of August, and so that is why they wanted that we all fill it in today. Of course, we know, and I've seen that post by many people on social media, that they have already filled it in. And moving on, the great breaking news today is the first ever Independence Day Gala Dinner is going to be happening at Queensland Parliament House this Sunday. The tickets will go on sale in an hour's time, so make sure that you are prepared. But this is a sneak preview. I'm giving you the information here from the station. This is the first time it's been made public. So your Independence Day Gala Dinner, 6 p.m. for 6:30 start. Bookings will be via Eventbrite very soon. The booking lines will be open. We've had so much inquiries, but we have kept the lines closed at the moment. In an hour's time, it will be open. So as it says, first in, best dressed. So we'll talk all about that later on as we move on into the show. Well, right now, as we look at what is today is the Census Day, Tuesday, the 10th of August, and looking out the window, it's a beautiful day out there, 18 degrees, and it's sunny, but it's not sunny. It's got a bit of a overcast, but not very bad. So, census. What are the census going to say this year? Of course, in times of pandemic.
Now tonight is Census Night, when the nation's statisticians will aim to get a unique snapshot of Australia. What makes this census different is the fact, of course, it's happening right smack bang in the middle of a pandemic.
But there has been concern about the way questions have been framed on religion and sexual identity. One of those involved in overseeing the census is Deputy Australian Statistician Teresa Dickinson, and she joins us now from Canberra. Teresa, good morning. Welcome to News Breakfast.
Good morning, Lisa.
Is this like exam day for you?
Oh, very much so. This is when it all comes together, all those hard years of preparation.
Yeah, I mean, so much goes into something like this, and we know last time round there was a lot of problems. The site crashed. Everyone's been talking about it. How are you going to feel tonight when people start logging on?
Well, we've had a lot of evidence already that things are going well. So we've had 3.3 million households who've already completed their census, nearly all of those online, and 900,000 of them did it yesterday.
Wow, okay. And I guess you'll be expecting more today as well before the evening goes in. I've got to confess I'm one of those who has already filled it out as soon as the letter turned up. What happens if people don't have their letter, they tossed it out?
And that happens a bit these days because we don't interact with our letterboxes in the same way that we used to, do we? So if you haven't got a letter, perhaps you have thrown it out, or perhaps you might have just missed it, you can still log in. There's an easy pathway. As soon as you log in, if you don't have a code,
Ladies and gentlemen, right now we'll go to
Does the fact that this is happening in the middle of a pandemic?
Vaccine or not, can I tell you the answer is yes. Yes, yes. It is absolutely critical. 4 shires, Byron, Lismore, Ballina, Richmond Valley, as being hotspots that's close to our border. So Queenslanders should not be travelling down there at all whatsoever, and vice versa. They're in a 7-day lockdown, so people from that area should not be travelling as well, unless you are an essential worker, and that's a pretty narrow definition. We do not want to see mass movement happening there at all. The Deputy Commissioner will update you shortly, but there will be an increased presence on our border to ensure that people are complying with the directions that have been given by the New South Wales Government and not crossing into Queensland, and vice versa. We don't want to see Queenslanders going down there. It's for 7 days, everyone, so let's all do the right thing. And finally, the Treasurer's here today. He's going to talk about the support package that CBRC approved yesterday to support our tourism and hospitality industry, but also with cleaning rebates as well. So It's around $70 million, and we want to make sure that we're providing that extra assistance to businesses out there that are doing it tough, and I'll get the Treasurer to address that. Okay, I'll hand over to Dr. Young first.
So 3 new cases in Queensland overnight, all of them locally acquired, all linked to the Indooroopilly cluster and all in home quarantine. Now I'm going to go through them just so that people can understand that there is an ongoing risk, but as long as people maintain that home quarantine, we'll be fine. So one case is a student at Brisbane Boys Grammar School who tested positive on day 8 of their quarantine, so tested negative when they first went into quarantine and not infectious in the community therefore. The second is a student at Ironside who tested positive on day 7. Again, not infectious in the community, they tested negative when they went into quarantine. And the third is a household contact of 2 known cases from Brisbane Boys Grammar School who's tested positive on day 9 when they went into quarantine. So this is an adult. And again, they tested negative when they went into quarantine. So I know how tough this must be for all of those people in home quarantine, but it's really important that they maintain it for the full 14 days since they've been last exposed to an infectious person. That's critical. So as people develop infection who are in those households, that 14 days quarantine unfortunately starts all over again for those people. So this will be very, very difficult for those families going forward, but it's critical so that we can limit the spread of this virus. And congratulations to Cairns. That 4,206 tests that were done in the last 24 hours is fantastic. That's an absolutely brilliant response from Cairns. I'd also like to comment about the work that the Public Health Unit has done up there. So you might remember that that Marine pilot developed symptoms on the 31st of July, which means his infectious period went back to the 29th of July, 2 days before. But he was fully vaccinated, and we know that can change whether or not someone gets any symptoms at all. So therefore now we've got this information from New Zealand about the ship that he piloted. He came off that ship on the 23rd of July, and we think that's probably where he acquired it. We're going to have to go back and contact trace to the 23rd of July. Then that taxi driver took the pilot to the airport on the 26th of July, and we know through whole genome sequencing that those two are linked. But that was before we thought he was infectious, which is why he wasn't picked up on contact tracing. But we're now going back further. So people in Cairns, there will be venues put up there, and please just take note, because you might have been in one of those venues going back to that 23rd of July. That's really important. Now, in terms of the border zone, as you've heard from the Premier, New South Wales has declared 4 of the LGAs in the border zone that we have in place as hotspots, and they've put in place stay-at-home orders for those 4 LGAs. So it's really important that anyone in Queensland who's been in any of those 4 local government areas since the 31st of July, which is the date when that man drove up from Sydney to Byron Bay while infectious, that you now are bound by those same requirements that New South Wales has put in place. So anyone who has been in those 4 LGAs and they've gone anywhere else out of those 4 LGAs, whether in New South Wales or in Queensland or indeed anywhere else, now needs to stay at home except for those 4 reasons that we're all used to. So it's really important because he was infectious in the community from the 31st of July. Now it's been confirmed that he never travelled into Queensland. He travelled from Sydney to Byron Bay on the 31st of July. He never travelled into Queensland. So that is good. That's reassuring. But having said that, anyone who's been in those 4 LGAs while he was there needs to now stay at home except for those essential reasons. Thank you.
We know it's going to be a good day when the Chief Health Officer starts our daily briefing by saying she has excellent news, and that's what she did this morning. Just 3 new cases, continued reduction in the number of cases linked to the Indooroopilly Delta cluster, all linked and all in home quarantine for their entire infectious period, as well as 0 new cases in Cairns despite more than 4,000 tests. As you've heard, the 3 positives tested positive on day 7, 8 and 9, underlining just how important that entire 14-day quarantine period is. We are aware of some shortage of product lines in supermarkets in and around Cairns. These are not caused by a shortage of products in the state, they are caused by panic buying. The supermarkets will deploy additional products to those stores, but again it's important just to underline to people in Cairns that they will not run out of goods. Please only buy what you need, please only shop alone if you can, not in groups, and please be kind to our essential workers. The positive case in those shires within the border zone, of course, is concerning. Anyone in Queensland who's been in those 4 local government areas will be subject to the same conditions. Police will strengthen border checks. We will have a thick blue line to protect us from cases coming north from New South Wales. QPS, the Queensland Police Service, has confirmed, and as you've heard from Dr Young, the case in Byron Bay did not travel from Queensland as some reported yesterday. They travelled north by car from Sydney after being in contact with a known positive COVID case.
Well done, Queensland. The message is clear. If you live in Queensland and you travel to those lockdown areas of New South Wales in the border zone, you must comply with the New South Wales directions. So you must be staying home and only leaving for those essential reasons. So check the New South Wales website of what those restrictions are. It is absolutely critical, just like everyone else who is associated with the Indooroopilly cluster are staying home and complying with home quarantine directions, and everyone in Cairns and Yarrabah are staying home with the lockdown. It is just as important anyone who lives in Queensland, on the Gold Coast particularly, who travel into those 4 lockdown areas since the 31st of July, comply with that lockdown direction. That way we can keep our community safe. Of course, coming out to get tested if you have any symptoms whatsoever. To Cairns and Yarrabah, fantastic work. Keep up that level of testing. Over 4,000 means 20% of all the tests we did in Queensland yesterday were taken in Cairns and in Yarrabah. So fantastic work. Thank you to all of our health workers and the private pathologists up there doing the testing. We are really pleased with the great work you're doing. And I want to put a shout out for our other health workers. I know I've got health workers from our Townsville HHS who travelled to Cairns to put themselves in a lockdown area so that they could help the Cairns and Hinterland Hospital and Health Service with whatever support they need. So thank you to those other health workers who have gone into that area to help support Cairns. We really appreciate it. I know it's a tough time, but if we do this together, you can get through this lockdown just as we have down here in southeast Queensland. Thank you to everyone who registered yesterday. Over 50,000 people registered for a vaccine. Keep up the great work, keep registering, and we will then be able to give you an opportunity to call forward and get a booking. But of course, GPs and pharmacies are also doing vaccinations. So take up those options, get vaccinated, especially if you're 60 and older, because it's about keeping you safe.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll leave that report there. As we move on, there's quite a lot that we need to cover. And one of the things that we were talking about, that today is a very special day. Today is Census Tuesday, the 10th of August, which is the Census Day. And we had begun that story, but I'll go back to that story and we'll have a look at what it actually means, especially in the middle of a pandemic, which it has never been like that. So this year, in the middle of a pandemic, what would the census night look like? And remembering what saga we had, it seems like it was yesterday when we had that saga when the servers went down and the whole country went in a chaos. Right now, let's take a look at that report, Kersty of ABC.
Now tonight is Census Night, when the nation's statisticians will aim to get a unique snapshot of Australia. What makes this census different is the fact, of course, it's happening right smack bang in the middle of a pandemic.
But there has been concern about the way questions have been framed on religion and sexual identity. One of those involved in overseeing the census is Deputy Australian Statistician Teresa Dickinson, and she joins us now from Canberra. Teresa, good morning. Welcome to News Breakfast.
Good morning, Lisa.
Is this like exam day for you?
Oh, very much so. This is when it all comes together, all those hard years of preparation.
Yeah, I mean, so much goes into something like this, and we know last time round there was a lot of problems. The site crashed. Everyone's been talking about it. How are you going to feel tonight when people start logging on?
Well, we've had a lot of evidence already that things are going well. So we've had 3.3 million households who have already completed their census, nearly all of those online, and 900,000 of them did it yesterday.
Wow, okay. And I guess you'll be expecting more today as well before the evening goes in. I've got to confess I'm one of those who has already filled it out as soon as the letter turned up. What happens if people don't have their letter? They tossed it out.
And that happens a bit these days because we don't interact with our letterboxes in the same way that we used to, do we? So if you haven't got a letter, perhaps you have thrown it out, or perhaps you might have just missed it, you can still log in. There's an easy pathway. As soon as you log in, if you don't have a code, we can send you one.
Does the fact that this is happening in the middle of a pandemic lessen the effectiveness of it, because you're not getting a real snapshot of how we'd be moving or travelling or working or staying with friends or out to dinner?
Well, the strong thing about running a census at any time is that you get a snapshot of the country at that time. And in fact, we've run a census in the tail end of the Spanish flu pandemic, and that data is actually now being used again to understand what happens as a country comes out of a pandemic. So we think, in fact, this census is going to be one of the most important that we've done because it shows how Australia's changed and changing as a result of the pandemic.
There's been a lot of questions and criticism over the fact that it does not go into detail with the questions on sex and gender. Are we really capturing the full diversity of Australia if we don't have questions like that?
So the census evolves. The questions that come on the census and go off the census change over time, and each census we look at a whole range of topics that might or might not be included. So I think that if we see this as an evolution, we now have a non-binary sex option, and that's a pathway that we're on. We also collect at the ABS information on gender and sexual orientation in some of our other surveys, so we're not absolutely in the dark on this.
All right, and what about the fact that the controversy over the religion question, the campaign for people to be encouraged to tick no religion, which is the top answer at the top of that question?
So this question's been controversial off and on throughout the history of the census. And this time round, we're hearing commentary on how to complete that question from both sides. And at the ABS, our advice is very simple. Tick the box that most applies to you.
How would you like people to be approaching that question, though? Because this is the whole thing. Are you reading it as, are you religious? Are you going to church? Or what was your past history with religion? I mean, what's the intent of the question?
Well, the question is very simple, and that is, what is your religion? And it's really about how people identify themselves. Some people feel that they're not religious unless they're actively practicing. Others feel that they are still of a religious faith, even if they don't practice. And so it's up to the person to figure out what suits them best in that question.
Okay.
So there we go. That's the census once, and if you haven't done it, tonight is the day. Tonight is when it's actually supposed to be done, but they've allowed it to be done before as well, left the lines open. It is a snapshot of the country at that given point in time. If everyone fills in at the same time, then it captures that moment at that time. But of course, our country is big and everyone having different priorities, so it makes it hard for everyone to log on at the same time. Well, right now, was that breaking news that we've been talking about. Yes, the first ever Gopio, Queensland's Independence Day dinner at the Parliament House. Yes, all is revealed right here. So, as we know that India Day Fair has been postponed for the 23rd of October for obvious reasons. We would like to get more people in there under a very safe environment, and hence Independence Day Gala Dinner is happening on the 15th of August, 6 p.m. for 6:30 start at Queensland Parliament House. Tickets are not on sale yet, but the tickets will be released within an hour. So, make sure that you grab those tickets because they will be gone like hotcakes. So booking will be via the Eventbrite, and history in the making, the first ever Independence Day Gala Dinner at Parliament House by Gopio, Queensland. And of course, you will appreciate that this was arranged very quickly because 15th August is the Independence Day, so we really need to do something on the day. So because the India Day Fair is shifted to the 23rd, the committee got together and Queensland government came on board and gave us he said, yes, we can do it at the Parliament House. So, it's an opportunity to people to come and enjoy the facilities and the hospitality of Parliament House. So, the Indian Independence Day Gala Dinner on 15th, which is this Sunday. Tickets will go on sale in an hour's time. Well, make sure that you book yours. So we are not ruling out, we are making it open to everyone, but the rule is that there's limited seating. So first in, best dressed, make sure you don't miss out. More details coming later on. Well, right now, when we look at the COVID-19 payments, some small businesses feel that they will be left out. Some people are getting paid not to work. But while there are others who are self-employed and running small businesses are still struggling it out there and working day in and day out to keep their businesses open, while some people are getting paid not to go to work.
Outside and among nature, Corey Barnes' job is hard but rewarding.
I liked the idea of working outdoors and I've always wanted to own my own business.
But the latest lockdown in New South Wales has cut his expectations and he's worried about the future.
Very scared, very worried about our businesses, whether we're going to be able to continue.
More than 18 months into the pandemic, support for businesses and workers is still uncertain when parts of the economy are shut down to control the spread of the virus. Many are left out. As the crisis began, banks were receiving a year's worth of calls a week. That slowed down, but there are ongoing concerns among the 4.9 million customers Rachel Slade looks after at NAB.
Well, there's certainly a bit of fatigue, particularly amongst businesses about the, on again, off again. We hear that from customers.
At one stage, the JobKeeper wage subsidy was supporting 3.5 million people, almost a third of the workforce. Since the $90 billion scheme was dismantled, it's been replaced by a system of payments similar to those received by victims of natural disasters.
The disaster payments scheme is a real patchwork and largely inadequate scheme because it's missing a great deal of people.
Since being introduced, more people are now eligible for the payments, and for some, they're as much as the previous wage subsidy.
And unlike JobKeeper, these payments were made based on the number of hours each worker had lost, as opposed to the turnover reduction in the business that they had worked for.
Corey has been getting the disaster payments, but business support that would have allowed him to keep staff on has been too difficult to access.
We haven't applied for it because it's just too hard. Myself and other business owners in this industry have decided that it's just too much, too many hoops to jump through.
He's had
Yes, and too many hoops to jump through, and I can vouch for that. Many times, it is not easy, not simple. There's so much that you need to provide, all the information that you need to provide, and then, of course, it takes a lot of time. Time that small business people don't have on their hand because they are so busy working in the business trying to keep the doors open. And this, if they spend all this time on paperwork, who's going to be looking after the business? But it's a balancing act that they need to balance. Well, right now, the last news is Moderna, the new vaccine, gets a seal of approval here in Australia.
Scott Morrison now knows it's a race against public sentiment.
I know Australians are frustrated. I know they're sick of it.
The Prime Minister asking the millions of Australians stuck in lockdown to hold their nerve.
I get it. I don't want it to be this way either. I don't want it to be like this for you and your family, but there are no shortcuts here.
The nation's armoury against the deadly Delta strain boosted, with the Moderna vaccine approved for use in Australia.
We'll have the jabs in our arms starting next month.
The first 1 million Moderna doses are due to arrive in late September, followed by 3 million a month in October, November and December. All up, 10 million Moderna doses should be delivered by Christmas. Full vaccination requiring 2 shots, administered 4 weeks apart.
Vaccine, vaccine.
With celebrity endorsement, Moderna's recorded 140 million doses in the US alone.
I did it!
Even after 6 months, it's proving to be 93% efficacious against any infection, 98% against severe disease and 100% against death, and that's really exciting.
We've been calling for it for months and months now, but again Scott Morrison was too slow to act.
Scott Morrison's political future depends on the success of the vaccine rollout. The public mood has turned against him and his government, with fear and frustration replacing any relief Australians might have had after missing the first deadly wave of this pandemic.
So there you are, up to date on Australian Indian Radio, and of course, the Prime Minister's rating depends on that vaccine rollout, while New South Wales records another 283 cases.
If ever there was an incentive to get the shot, for many, this is it.
We are here in queue to do the vaccination, to get back to work.
Construction workers in COVID hotspots can pick up tools from Wednesday on the condition they're vaccinated.
If it has to be done, it has to be done. There's nothing much we can do about it.
George Diab runs a construction company with 100 employees. He says he was shocked by the rule.
It's very unfair. I mean, it's saying that it can't be forced on people, but it is being forced on people. I mean, it's either you get it done or you sit at home without pay, without income. So, really, we're getting forced to do it.
And it's causing dissent within government ranks.
Our government needs urgently to pull back on this one area of forcing vaccines upon people, or it is just going to be a bloodbath at the next election, I fear.
Obviously, the New South Wales government respects people's views on these matters, but we also appreciate that during a very difficult time, you need to think about the greater good.
The death toll has risen. A woman died in palliative care in Sydney's north. She was in her 90s and unvaccinated. The number of new cases is remaining at a consistent level. Less than half can be linked, while at least 64 were infectious in the community.
We are working very hard to maintain this and to continue to look at opportunities for driving down the case numbers.
If cases don't go down and rules relax, an easing of border restrictions is unlikely to follow.
We can safely assume that other states will remain with closed borders to New South Wales for much of the rest of this year, whilst we do drive those vaccination rates up into the higher levels. If they open
So there you go. You've just said it, that the New South Wales borders might be closed for the rest of this year. Well, right now, let's the lead-out story for today. Let's take a look at the lockdown right here in Queensland.
Yeah, so Delta breaks all the rules. It just jumps really easily from one person to another.
It was real, it could easily be one of my friends or one of the teachers that I know.
After 8 days, mostly indoors, people in southeast Queensland are spending their first day out of lockdown. But the highly infectious Delta strain continues to spread. In far north Queensland, Cairns and Yarrabah are in lockdown following a high-risk case where a taxi driver was infectious in the community.
A taxi driver would be just about the worst case scenario for anyone in public health because they have lots of customers and they have very confined spaces.
The Brisbane outbreak began when the Delta strain infected a 17-year-old student in the city's western suburbs. 2 days later, authorities moved quickly to lock down southeast Queensland. Even with that swift reaction, the Indooroopilly cluster has quickly grown to 113 people. But for now, authorities believe the outbreak has been contained, with only 4 locally acquired cases in the last 24 hours.
So excellent news overnight. All of our cases were in quarantine during their entire infectious period.
It remains a mystery just who infected the 17-year-old student, despite testing showing it is linked to 2 people who returned from overseas. A case on the Gold Coast and another in Byron Bay are being watched closely.
So there are the 2 cases being watched very closely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have time for you in this segment. And the news that I told you before about the Independence Day dinner at Parliament House we will do. But let's go to the tail end of that press conference with Dr. Janet Young.
That they expect there will be more doses in September, which is excellent news. And as soon as we get those doses, we'll be offering people to book who've registered. So that's why I need every single person to get online and register, and then we'll be able to pull them and organise those bookings. I don't want there to be a single vacant booking slot. So yes, we had 50,000 yesterday, but Queensland is now getting about 100,000 doses a week of Pfizer coming to us, and a similar amount to GPs. So people have got to remember that you can go to your GP. Not all GPs yet, but that's rapidly escalating. So it's really important that people who want AstraZeneca, if you're 60 years of age or older, you go immediately, get your first dose. If it's more than 8 weeks, get your second dose, as I am today. I'm getting my second dose of AstraZeneca today. If you're under 60, you can go and talk to your GP about getting AstraZeneca at any stage, or you can register for one of our hubs and we'll send you out a booking when it's your turn in that list. Or you can check where you can go and see a GP to get Pfizer.
So you can go and see your GP and get the dates changed. Well, right now, what we've been talking about, the breaking news is this: the gala dinner, Independence Day gala dinner at Queensland Parliament House on this Sunday, the 15th, 6 p.m., which includes a 3-course sit-down dinner, drinks and entertainment. Limited sittings are available, so you need to book online and book ASAP, because it will be Fest in Best Dress, History in the Making, Independence Day dinner at Parliament House by GoPure Queensland. This is the first ever, and this is your very exclusive invitation. So as soon as you keep an eye out, you will get the notification of as soon as the ticketings are open, and it will remain open for a little while, because GoPure Queensland is withholding some tickets for some of the VIP guests. Others will be available for general public to book. So my advice would be get in as soon as you can. And all that, the link will be shared very, very soon, and would like to see you all there to celebrate. Look, no matter how hard the times are, no matter how trying the times are, our Independence Day is our Independence Day, so we need to actually observe that. Under any circumstances, the celebrations might be subdued, but of course it does not change the fact that we got our independence on that day through the sacrifice of many. It needs to be observed, and we need to remember that, lest we forget. So, ladies and gentlemen, keep and look out for that notification, and very soon soon the notification, and the ticketing booth will be open for ticket which will be made available to general public for a limited time. So ladies and gentlemen, with that, it's goodbye from me. It's so good to see you. So nice of you joining in. Chandan Das, thank you so much for joining in. Devika also, Usha Chandra is joining in as well. And don't forget that tomorrow, so we'll be bringing the real estate update right here. So ladies and gentlemen, right now, it's time to say goodbye.